welcome to Sex Talk with JoJo Bear. My name is JoJo Bear, and I'm a somatic sex and intimacy coach, and welcome to the show. And if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. So get on your knees and stick your finger right on that button. You don't have to get on your knees, but you could just press the button. But I'm so happy that you are subscribed, and tell a friend, and tell a fiend, tell a coworker. Anybody is welcome to watch my talks, okay? So today's episode, we're going to talk about prostate cancer. Specifically, is there life with sex after prostate cancer? And I'm here to tell you that it is possible. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about prostate cancer. And so thank you for watching the show. And you know, there's never a good time for a man to tell a man that he has prostate cancer. And there's a lot of guys that usually get that diagnosis, not always, but there's guys that get the diagnosis usually after 40. However, there have been a lot of men that are getting prostate cancer lately that are even in their 20s and 30s. So what I recommend is to really check yourself. If you feel any uncomfortability down there, check yourself. And don't be afraid to get a prostate exam from your doctor. It is really an important thing to do. Don't wait until it's too late. So, but I always tell guys, the best thing to do is get in the shower. When you're in the shower, really when you're cleaning yourself, is to check yourself there. Now, what is a prostate? Okay, so I went to the CDC website, and I'm going to tell you specifically what the CDC says. They say the prostate is a part of the male reproductive system. It includes the penis, the prostate, and the testicles. The prostate is located just below the bladder and in front of the rectum. So it's like the size of a walnut, maybe sometimes smaller, maybe sometimes bigger, and it surrounds the urethra, the tube that empties the urine from the bladder, right? And it produces fluid that makes part of the semen. So if you go up a little ways up, and you feel kind of like a walnutty kind of feeling, and for some guys they're really sensitive and you get nice juicy feeling, and some guys don't feel any sensation at all. But if it feels really tender, or if it feels like it hurts, or it's really, really hard, then maybe you should go to your doctor and check. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not telling you exactly what to do, but I should always tell you that it's important to be healthy around your body and around our body parts. So always check in with your doctor first. Now, what is prostate cancer? So cancer is a disease in which cells in the body grow out of control, right? And when cancer starts in the prostate, it's called prostate cancer. Except for skin cancer, prostate cancer is the #1 common cancer for American men. And so here's the deal. Last couple of years, I got to work with a couple of guys in my somatic sex and intimacy coaching around prostate cancer. All of them had a different outlook on their sexual life afterwards as well. So let's begin with one of my clients. His name's Leaf, and he was a 70-year-old man who was in really good health, but he was diagnosed with prostate cancer about 3 or 4 years ago. The doctor caught it before it really spread. The treatment that he did was the radiation treatment, which was they distributed these kind of radiation seeds into his prostate glands, right? But the most radical thing that happened to him, because he went through it, was his distress over his sex life. And luckily he had a really supportive doctor that kind of said, you will have a sex life. You will have a sex life. And what he did was he ended up doing a lot of like massage groups, going to men's retreats, and doing things where he still had some contact with his penis and being touched or getting genital massage And what happens is that with guys with prostate cancer, once they've gone through treatment and if they've been in remission, sometimes they'll have erectile difficulties, not necessarily, but sometimes they do. But what happens is they won't have the ability to have an external ejaculation. However, the guys, if you stimulate the cock enough, you can have that sensation of having an internal ejaculation. Now, it's funny, the guys that I've worked with that have been through remission and have actually gained to the point where they can feel that pleasure, say it's actually really fun because it feels like having multi-orgasms. Now, they're feeling what women feel, because women get this all the time and they get it, and they get it their whole life. So it's possible to really have that internal orgasm and still feel sexual without having have that ejaculation. So because the prostate cancer does not destroy the orgasm nerve, there's the opportunity to have that internal orgasm. So then there's another guy that I worked with. His name was Sam. He was about 55 years old, and he had his prostate removed. And during his recovery period, it took him a long time to come to terms that his penis wasn't working as it usually was. He was very penis-centric in his adult life. And he started to get really depressed. He got into a state where he just felt really broken and unstable, and he didn't want to be touched. He really didn't want to have sex. He was so wrapped up with his this whole image around his penis that it really took a toll on him. And then what happened was, after having years of not being, able to pleasure or really drop into his pleasure around his penis, he comes to me, and so we started to figure out ways where he can feel pleasure around his body and start to kind of look at ways he can activate other parts of his bodies to feel comfortable and feel pleasure and activate that. And after a lot of doing a lot of touch that involved consent and boundaries and asking for what he needed, he started to feel all these sensations and the arousal started coming back. Now, here's the funny thing, and maybe I'll do a video soon about erectile difficulties, but a lot of guys get so worked up confusing erection and arousal both in the same. You can have arousal without being erect, right? It's because you probably have been aroused and not get a hard on. So getting that idea into someone's mind and really dropping into arousal is super duper important, right? So now there's another guy that I worked with. His name was William, and he was 49 years old, and he was pretty in a pretty low state because he was convinced that his boyfriend left him because his inability to have a hard erection. When he had prostate cancer, he went through the treatment, he went through the chemo and radiation, and what happened was his boyfriend called it quit when he was kind of in recovery. So he had a long time not having sex, and he just wasn't feeling sexual. So he had this whole because of the breakup and because of the cancer at the same time, he had this whole idea that one went with the other, that he was useless for sexually. So what happened was we started kind of separating the two when he came to work with me. And not only that, he wasn't touched for a long time. There was not that many people that actually touched him, except for his doctor or nurse. So getting to a place where he can feel that he can be touched down there, touched genitally, ask for it, and feel like he can receive and accept it was a biggie for him. And he basically started to get really emotional. There was a lot of grieving that was happening. He was holding it all in. And I think not only the grieving was happening because of his relationship with his partner that didn't work out, but also the whole grieving of having prostate cancer. It's so important to be able to be in a space where you can talk about it and you can really get some support and recovery with it, because it's emotionally really difficult for men, because we're all wrapped up in our cocks, basically. Our penises are really major for us. Since we were little children, we always had this relationship with our penis, and it really affects the manhood of a person, where if you can't ejaculate or you can't get an erection, it really does a number, and it affects the body. The more that we let it affect our brain, it'll affect our body. So just getting back to Leaf, the guy that I was talking to about earlier, his recovery was a willingness to remain open to touch, right? And he began, like I said, he began working with masseurs, and he started going into different men's group and places where he can actually get touch. And it's so important that to get that space. So finding somatic sex coaches, finding sexological body workers, finding massage therapists that do genital work. And I'm not talking about sex here. I'm talking about really being in a somatic space where you're feeling safe and comfortable and being touched in a way that is going to help you heal. And pleasure, adding pleasure to it, is a way to heal. So I remember one of the guys telling me that he said to me, I can't believe it took me this to get cancer to understand that my whole body can be sexual, not just my cock. And that was a biggie when I heard that. So sex may be different after prostate cancer, but it's definitely not over. So if you're willing to explore possibilities and willing to be open and willing to know that sex is different, but it's also the same. You're going to still feel pleasure, and you're going to still be able to give and receive pleasure. Things might change, but things can be open for you. So the things that I would like to shout out for you is that always make sure that you're checking yourself. Make sure that you're taking precautionary measures by checking your prostate, seeing your doctor, especially if you're over 40, but really especially if you're in your 50s and 60s and 70s. But everyone should be checking their prostate. Stimulate your prostate. I teach prostate massage. I teach how to do prostate mapping. So really get yourself educated about your prostate. It's something that can be stimulated. And I'm talking to everyone, not only gay or bisexual. I'm also talking to you heterosexual males that feel like, oh, I can't have anything up my ass. It doesn't make you gay to really stimulate your prostate. It actually feels really good. So be willing to explore, because it might save your life. Because there's prostate cancer is very common in the United States and all over the world. It's very common, but it's also one of the cancers that do kill. And so a lot of men can die from prostate cancer if it is not caught on time. So, do you have any information about prostate cancer? Have you ever had prostate cancer? You know anyone who has prostate cancer? Have you been affected sexually by prostate cancer? I want to hear from you. Let me know. I really would love to kind of hear what you have to say about this. So, my name is JoJo Bear. You're watching Sex Talk with JoJo Bear. Please subscribe. I'd love it if you can subscribe. Check out my website at www.metamorphicembodiment.com. And ciao for now.